Tonight, on Legislative Review, Outgoing Governor Jay Inslee's proposed operating budget. Plus, his State of the State address as he leaves office. From Olympia, this is Legislative Review. Welcome to Legislative Review, your source for daily highlights in the state legislature. I'm Angela Nolasco. It might seem like a normal, uneventful day in Olympia. But under the dome, it's budget season. For the next few months, state budget writers will piece together the state's financial plan on how much money is projected to go into state funding and just how much money needs to go out for the next 2 years, that is. Every other year, state lawmakers have to put their heads together to come up with 3 budgets: capital for state infrastructure, transportation for pedestrian access, ferries, bridges and roads, culverts and public transit, to name a few. And lastly, operating, which covers areas such as government operations, K-12 education, behavioral health, and many others. The state's current capital or construction budget is about $10 billion right now, while transportation is at $14.6 billion and operating at $69.8 billion. In December, the governor, alongside his budgeting team, the Office of Financial Management, or OFM, writes a budget proposal based on requests submitted by agencies in the fall. Revenue forecasts are based on quarterly reports made by economic experts to the legislature, which paints a picture of how much money the state will have to work with. The governor then rolls out a proposed fiscal plan once the legislative session kicks off. This is what lawmakers hold hearings on before attempting to write their own. Which brings us to the House of Representatives. In the afternoon of January 13th, the first day of session, the House Appropriations Committee held a public hearing on outgoing Governor Inslee's proposed operating budget. During the hearing, OFM's Nona Snell spoke on the budget.
There are many challenges to this upcoming budget. Revenue growth that is slowing, caseload enrollments that are increasing, costs that are increasing, and there's continued challenges with retaining and recruiting a skilled workforce.
Snell said the budget follows principles that include maintaining existing agency services, ending programs that are no longer needed, and making other cuts as necessary. Here are some highlights of the proposed budget. In the area of behavioral health, the budget prioritizes emergency access for opioid use disorder medication. It adds community support services for behavioral health and increases beds for the University of Washington's Behavioral Health Hospital. In the area of housing and homelessness, the budget proposes to continue funding for affordable housing, prioritize consolidated homeless grants, and aid for immigrants who are unqualified for federal resettlement services. In the area of early learning and childcare, the budget also proposes an 18% increase to childcare provider rates. It removes childcare unfilled slots and adds 750 school day slots. It also allows for OSPI funding for grants for school districts for children in daycare to transition to kindergarten. In the areas of K-12 and higher education, the budget also proposes to increase student nutrition programs so that more school districts will have access to them. It also proposes to increase K-12 compensation. A 65% increase in Washington College grant was also proposed by the budget, and a $40 million one-time appropriation for University of Washington's Behavioral Health Teaching Facility. The budget also proposes an $80 million additional investment to the Climate Commitment Act and to continue electric vehicles incentive. The budget also sets aside money for a new Clean Energy Development Office for clean energy and transmission. That's a lot to digest, yet only a small portion of the full proposal. In a nutshell, here's the big picture. Of the $79.5 billion proposed, $33.3 will go to K-12 schools, $12.8 for social health services, $8.9 for healthcare authority, $6.4 billion for higher education, $5.3 billion for the Department of Children, Youth and Families, $3.4 billion for the Department of Corrections, $3.2 billion for general government, and $1.2 billion for natural resources. Governor Inslee's proposed operating budget is just a framework and can definitely change the closer we get to the end of session, at the leadership of incoming Governor Bob Ferguson. On Tuesday, outgoing three-term Governor Jay Inslee delivered his final State of the State address to a joint session of the legislature. Inslee leaves office as Washington's 23rd governor, the only second three-term governor in the history of the state, next to Dan Evans. He delivered his address with a central theme: progress. In his speech, he cited early childhood education, developments in transportation, and paid family leave among the state's strong wins in the last 12 years of his tenure.
Together, we passed the two biggest transportation funding packages in state history, putting thousands of people to work and broadening our focus beyond highways to include things like free transit for all Washingtonians 18 and younger.
Inslee, who previously served in the State House and Congress in D.C., also highlighted other accomplishments of the state, such as reducing homelessness by 40%, the banning of so-called assault weapons, and the Climate Commitment Act, which he said makes Washington a leader in the nation in greenhouse gas reduction.
62% of voters chose to keep slashing pollution and strengthening our communities through Cap and Invest. I'm proud to tell you this: we are building a clean energy economy that is the envy of the entire nation, thanks to this legislature.
He also claimed that while Washington's economy is in good shape, disparity still exists in communities because of the state's, quote, regressive tax structure.
Our economy provides more than enough to some, but our regressive tax system is unfair to most working families. While fortunes for some are growing, so are the lines at the food banks.
The outgoing governor, who championed the capital gains tax during his term, doubled down on the controversial tax, saying it has helped bolster behavioral health services and early childhood education for Washingtonians.
More than 64% of our state said we're keeping our capital gains tax on extraordinary profits. My budget honors that principle by asking those who have benefited the most from Washington's booming economy to play more of a role protecting behavioral health, early learning, and education.
Maintaining his stance against deep budget cuts, Inslee also said consequences for these are usually paid on the backs of working families.
Or the thousands who've been priced out by a housing market that has not kept pace with demand.
He also noted that while the accomplishments he mentioned should give the state full confidence, there is more work to do.
We keep moving forward. We pull together because we are the state of Washington.
And concerning the incoming federal leadership, Inslee had this to say.
Our state will work with anyone on policies that are positive for Washington. But we will not bend the knee to a would-be authoritarian's worst impulses. We will follow the Constitution, and we will be steadfast in our commitment to the progress of our state together.
His final message to legislators: work together.
This legislature knows how to keep going. The challenges ahead will not weaken the momentum of what we're doing here. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind. You will inevitably face frustration. You will struggle with the tyranny of the status quo. Do not lose patience. Do not trade in courage for comfort.
On Wednesday, Governor-elect Bob Ferguson will deliver his inaugural address at another joint session of the House and the Senate, followed by the Republican perspective on the 2025 legislative session. Thanks for joining us tonight. To watch an entire legislative hearing or floor debate, check out TVW's archives for on-demand viewing at tvw.org.